All right, welcome back to the Thermo Diet podcast. My name is Christopher Walker, and I'm here with, I forgot, I didn't think of a name. Jayton Miller.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll take that.
Yeah.
Right? All right.
Yeah. I think we've used that one before.
Oh, we have?
Yeah.
Let's see. James. Have we used that?
James? Jeffrey?
No, that was the last one.
Oh, yeah,
Je-
it was.
Or Justine.
What about Joffrey?
Joffrey, there you go.
Like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jayton. Yeah.
Okay.
Joffrey Miller.
Joffrey.
Nice.
Joffrey Miller. And today we're going to be talking about fasting. This was a requested question
Yeah.
from someone in the Thermo Diet Facebook group.
I think this was Jake Miner too, actually.
Jake Meyer.
Yeah.
On
He
a
sent
roll.
me a couple.
All
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Jake.
Yeah.
So for anyone else who has questions or you want topics that you want us to talk about, just leave them in the group. Let us know.
Definitely. Or send us a message. I'll get in there and check it every once in a while. So, but heck yeah. So, thoughts on fasting?
So, all right. Well, first off, fasting, there's a lot of different types of fasting.
Mm-hmm.
So we could look at different types. So there's obviously intermittent fasting. The idea of even the most simplified view of it is just skip breakfast, eat twice a day,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or eat during a window in the afternoon potentially. Or you could reverse it and just eat in the morning and not eat in the evenings. Something like that. Then there's the more strict methods like lean gains method, eat, stop, eat, those types of things. Like lean gains being just like strict 16-8,
Mm-hmm.
16 hours fast, 8 hours eating. Eat, stop, eat being 2 days a week of a 24-hour fast.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have people that just they'll do a 24-hour, they'll do 48, they'll do 72, they'll do 5 days, they'll do, like I've heard people fasting for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
All different types of fasting.
Mhm.
So I guess in this episode we could talk about just kind of the different things involved with them,
Mhm.
what you can expect, as well as like the impact that it will have potentially on your thyroid or your metabolism, your stress, and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Fasting, I do think, is a really good tool to have. I think it is a very restorative practice. However, it can be done wrong, and it can actually hurt people that aren't supposed to be doing it. So let's talk about all this different stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And this is strictly fasting for health reasons, not necessarily religious reasons, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sweet. So really, whenever it comes to fasting, the biggest thing that I think about is the state of health that the person is in that's doing it. So, if you're waking up with a waking body temperature of 96 degrees, you do not need to be fasting.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the last thing that you need to be doing, because your conversion of T4 to T3 or your production of thyroid hormone in general is hindered tremendously.
Yeah, and temperature is an indicator of metabolic rate, naturally, which very logically makes sense, but not many people make that correlation.
Yeah, and that's one reason that, like, if you eat a really nutrient-dense Thermo meal, then your fingers warm up. You might get a little sweaty.
Start sweating.
Yeah, because your metabolism's ramping up, and that's how you know that you fed your body well. But yeah, so that's the biggest thing that I would suggest is just looking at the state of health that you're in, and then from there determining, okay, how can I use this effectively and safely?
Yep. Yep. So, moral of that story is take your waking temperature, and if you're low, then you don't need to be fasting. You need to be restoring your thyroid function.
Yeah.
Fasting is naturally going to lower thyroid function. Especially if you go a longer period of time. So let's say you did a multi-day fast, right? Just logically, let's think about this. Your body's going to start to lower the metabolic rate because it's trying to preserve resources. And a lot of people use this. Fasting is a therapeutic medicine tool. There's even stuff back just thousands of years old of records of people, doctors prescribing fasting for curing ailments, because what you're doing is your body really is a self-healing organism, and it will, in the absence of blockers, stuff people are putting in their body, in the absence of the blockers, it'll start to heal itself. And so if you're very sick, have a lot of issues, like there's a fasting clinic up in Northern California called forgot what it was called. I've been there. I really forgot what it was called though.
I can't. Does it start with a P?
It's called North something, like North Star, North.
I'm not really sure. I've heard of several.
Yeah.
There's some across the country.
But this one specifically, they focus mostly on type 2 diabetics, very overweight people that their hormones are just all out of whack. So what they do is they go on, and some people go on multi-month fasts because they have so much fat tissue to lose.
Yeah.
And they will do this as a restorative therapeutic practice, and they're all monitored, obviously. The only issue I have with that place is it's like they're extreme, like militant vegan. I'm
really?
Like, yeah. But really, I think they're so militant vegan because they're taking it out of context. Like they're only focused on that one population, and obviously, if they're fasting and like eating green or drinking green juice or something, like they're obviously gonna become healthier because they're so out of it when they get there.
And like if you go from a standard American diet and you start fasting once a week, you're gonna see results because you're eliminating a lot of the blockers that are in the diet too.
Yeah.
So you're eliminating the polyunsaturated fats. You know, a lot of the vegetables aren't sitting in your gut fermenting. They're actually having time to like get out of the digestive system and stuff like that too.
Yeah. Well, and you notice like if you do a multi-day fast that typically the first couple meals back go right through you. They and that's why they usually recommend like juicing to break fasts like that, like a long one, 3-day or whatever or more, because it's around that point that your digestive system starts to really kind of focus inward, and it's like dormant almost in terms of the ability to digest anything. So if you were to eat like full-on meal or things that are hard to digest like vegetables, they will literally go through you.
Yeah.
Like your body it's not woken up yet.
Yeah, not prepared for it.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, what are some of the benefits that you see from fasting?
I think the biggest one in general actually is a lifestyle tool.
Really?
Because I think a big part of the battle of like having a healthy lifestyle is mental, and it's probably most of the battle, like when you know what to do, and then a lot of people still get in their own way, the sabotaging. It's all like a mental game at that point. There are obviously like physical realities, but I think the biggest benefit actually of a short like just get breakfast kind of deal is just the lifestyle flexibility that it gives somebody. It's like they're giving themselves permission to not be obsessed about food all the time. And I think when people are super obsessed about food, then they get in their own way. They focus so much on it that they're not focused on other stuff in their life that will make their life better. It helps you simplify. It helps you just to be like, okay, I'll eat twice a day. And by the time you're eating, like you're making good choices. You're not constantly obsessing. At least that's just what I've found over the years. And I mean, I've been talking about this stuff online for like 10 years now almost. So I've seen a lot of people also say the same thing, where it helps just kind of free up their mind and gives them the flexibility to make better choices throughout the day and not be so obsessed.
Yeah.
And so I think that's in and of itself is a very valuable thing. And then there's ways to maximize to minimize the thyroid lowering effect of fasting, specifically like if breaking a fast in a specific way. So using a strategy like bone broth in a smoothie to break your fast is really good. The fructose is going to kind of go right to your liver, help your liver kind of get going, and then the amino acid profile in the bone broth is also going to fire things up nicely and support your thyroid, making sure that it has all the right stuff, the right raw materials that it needs to stay functioning properly and in a nice balance. So that's what I would say is like, I know there are a lot of people that are like more militant Petarians that would be, they're like very against fasting in general. But I would say like taking in the context of a real life, a real person's life, I think short intermittent fasting can be extremely useful as a tool for a lifestyle and mindset.
Yeah. And I noticed that a lot of people simply just the alleviation of the stress from being neurotic about food is like enough of a stress relief to have a positive benefit and mitigate the impact that it really has in the long term.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's one of the reasons that it can be detrimental to the thyroid too. So if you're in a low metabolic state, is because your liver runs out of glycogen, and then the absence of glycogen in the liver leads to less conversion of thyroid hormone to T3.
Yeah, but you can stay topped up with the glycogen if you're consuming plenty of starches on a regular basis, daily, in the eating window.
Yeah.
And that turns into the issue that a lot of the keto people run into.
Yeah.
Because they're not consuming any sort of carbohydrates. They run out of glycogen in everywhere, muscle tissue as well. So.
And then like they start converting their muscle into glucose because they have to watch their protein intake. Like their protein intake can't get too high. Yeah. Because then they start converting the amino acids into glucose because their body needs glucose to function properly.
The thyroid gland shuts down because it needs glucose to actually make thyroid hormone.
Yeah, and that's why you see a lot of these keto people with like big bags under their eyes, and they kind of have like real big bags, purple bags under their eyes. That's kind of that's a sign.
Big purple bags.
Yeah, big purple bags under their eyes. Yeah, so it's really interesting to see.
Yeah, and it's a bad combo. Not consuming carbohydrates and fasting frequently. Recipe for disaster. Yeah,
definitely. So that's the benefit from intermittent fasting. What do you see the benefits are from longer term fast? Because you've done a few.
Yeah, I've done a few over the years. Yeah. Initially, I started messing around with it in college, so it was a while ago. I was probably 19. Did my first 5-day fast, which I don't really recommend it's not very enjoyable. Yeah, it's pretty boring too.
Really?
You just get really tired. But I was on this, very much on a kick of figuring out how to get rid of this tumor issue. So I was trying fasts like that. That's really when I got into fasting in general. And that was way before it was mainstream popular with the intermittent fasting stuff. So it was just kind of getting started in a bunch of weird forums and stuff. People would be like, "Oh, let's do this for health reasons and everything." And I'll tell you what, though, you do feel really good. Once you get back into the swing of things after the fast, you feel clean, more pure. So it's good if your system is really messed up. I think it can be very beneficial to take a period to do it and then come back with a specific Thermo-esque routine that can kickstart your thyroid, bring your metabolism back up, and keep your hormones balanced. It does have therapeutic properties because of the self-healing concept and the energy moving in that way in your body. So if you're really messed up and you really need to hit the reset button, it might be beneficial. Especially maybe not even a 5-day, but a 3-day, 2 to 3 day could be good. Not necessary though. I found over the years too that a lot of times earlier on I would want to go into these extreme things when I was really trying to hit some home run swings with improving my health. But what I always found was that law of compensation always held true. Of if you go make a home run swing, you go real far to one end of the spectrum, do something extreme, you're going to potentially have the exact opposite compensation essentially of that action. So the binge purge cycle is a very real thing that your body adheres to. It's like a law almost. Yeah. So what I've found and that's why the law of compensation is considered a universal law. The pendulum swings. Yeah. So what I've found over the years is just that like a routine, simplifying and staying in a consistent routine and building momentum is actually way more useful over the long term. You build the habits, you're just doing the right thing every day, making progress daily. It might not be a big home run swing. It might just be like a tiny step that someone could take. But then they start getting momentum and they start feeling good about that tiny step. And then I'm like, oh, I could do something else. Let me add something else in the mix. Let me get rid of a blocker. Let me add some activators back in the mix. And then eventually, before you know it, a year's gone by and you're just in a totally different place and you feel like you could do this forever. Instead of swinging back and forth on the binge purge cycle on the pendulum, you are doing that. So I'd say like that would be my word of wisdom on the multi-day fasting concept. Is like you probably get just a better effect in general if you just change your lifestyle.
Yeah, that's one reason that I noted that one of the main reasons that I stopped fasting is because I noticed that I would fall into those binge purge cycles because, you know, I'd be hungry and I'd start eating and then I wouldn't want to stop eating, and because I'd be like, oh, I can only eat for 8 hours or 4 hours. And you know, I got to one point where I tried the OMAD for a little while. And I'd just be like, man, I'm hungry, but I'd be full at the same time, you know? And so I kind of got out of touch with some of those, you know, those signals that my body was telling me, like, hey, you're full, stop eating. And I noticed whenever I stopped fasting that kind of went away after a little while. And so that's the main reason that I don't fast anymore, is just so I don't fall into that cycle.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to it's a mental thing for most people.
Yeah.
So use it as a tool if you need to, but you don't need to. So it just, it's a mental game. Life is a mental game.
Yeah. One of the main benefits that a lot of people talk about is autophagy. So it's simply just the lysosomal cleaning of the cell, getting rid of a lot of the dead cells and stuff like that. So the lysosomes will actually eat a lot of the material that's there and recycle it. Yeah, which is really interesting.
Similar concept to apoptosis.
Yeah,
which is like programmed cell death, which can also be influenced by different things. But it's a necessary part. Like apoptosis is a necessary part of your brain function.
Right. And
if you kill useless or less useful connections, cellular connections.
Yeah. And whenever that's out of whack, then you have mutations that lead to cancer, and then they start populating at an outrageous rate, and then next thing you know, you got a tumor somewhere.
Yep. Which usually is caused by excess estrogen issues, throwing that balance off.
Yeah, what's really interesting is that most tumors are actually in a reductive state, and cortisol and estrogen are actually reductive hormones, which is really interesting. So they've actually found that cortisol and estrogen are kind of like surround a tumor in a lot of cases, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's not cool if it's yours.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's cool. Yeah, from a intellectual standpoint.
Yeah,
like to
from
learn
a science
out.
standpoint, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it confirms all these patterns that we're seeing.
Yeah. So, and specifically, they found it in the types of tumors that grow body parts. Have you heard of those?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's really interesting.
Don't Google those.
Yeah.
They're disgusting.
You'll see
the one
like
with the teeth. That one's a fucking nightmare.
So yeah, they got teeth, they got eyeballs. They'll start growing different organs and stuff. It's pretty crazy.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Damn it.
But no, it's fascinating. But
hair, they grow hair. Yeah. I can't stop thinking. All right, change the subject.
Oh, you got hair growing on the inside of your body?
Yeah.
Oh.
Hairy teeth. Ew. This is what nightmares are made out of.
Yeah.
Estrogen.
But anyways, yeah. And then as far as like longer term fasts, 7+ days, as therapeutic reasons, usually, would you recommend like that just being under supervision?
I mean, formally, yes, but informally, it depends on the severity, I think, of the person's current condition, probably. If you have a lot of medical issues, a ton of weight to lose. You're obviously going to be storing a lot of estrogen in that fat tissue also. And a lot of people in that type of scenario are also on a ton of medications. So if you're going to do a long-term fast in that type of scenario, I would definitely recommend being medically supervised just in case, because the detoxification effect of not even mentioning all the medication can be very dangerous. But also all of the kind of the toxins that are probably stored in that person's liver in general, which could also be like dietary issues, or definitely, there's a combo of both, like dietary impact, all the nasty shit that's in like the standard diet, and then also all the drugs that someone would be taking. I would be medically supervised if I was in that scenario. But if you were doing it and you had just a less severe scenario and someone was just doing it to do it, to hit the reset button or like have some sort of spiritual experience along with it or whatever, if they're generally like pretty healthy, the detoxification shouldn't be that bad. But it's still something that, like, I mean, you feel it like after a couple days, like you might get headaches, you get very, very tired. Some people try to still work and be active during the period of time, which I'm not sure like I would recommend that. Let your body rest and sleep if you're going to do that. It'll lower the symptoms of some of these issues that start to happen. And then you do go into deep ketosis. The smell is bad.
The breath.
Yeah. Holy shit. It's nasty. Like you can't get rid of it because it's just the ketones. And you could take showers all day and it won't go away.
Yeah.
So that's something to know. Like you're gonna stink if you do a deep fast like that.
Interesting. So you said whenever you are looking at the mental aspect of it, like you'll see whenever you're doing intermittent fasting, like a little bit of elevated cognition for a little bit. Do you find if you fast for too long that kind of tapers away?
Definitely goes away.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it goes the opposite direction.
Yeah.
After probably about 2 days, like you start to feel way less cognizant of anything. Can't think. Yeah.
Is there any kind of benefits that you've associated with that? Like as far as like, internally, like thought-wise? Like you've been able to focus on one specific thing, and because you have that absence of focus on food, you can focus on that one thing?
You mean with a long fast? No.
Okay.
No. The long fast, in my experience, it always, around the 2-day mark, like you were pretty much useless.
Okay.
You're not like extremely focused on anything. And then all you want to do is watch like Anthony Bourdain or something, some sort of food show, And you're like, why the hell am I doing this?
Just torturing yourself?
Yeah.
So what are the biggest takeaways that we could give people on fasting?
I think some of the biggest takeaways we covered that you need to pay attention to are, first off, if you're in a low metabolic state, you don't need to fast. It's not necessary. You probably shouldn't fast. You should probably focus on restoring your proper thyroid gland function, lowering your stress hormones.
Now, in that case, from that aspect, would you recommend a calorie deficit?
No.
Okay.
I'd recommend just eating Thermo foods, to be honest. Like go pure Thermo. Don't eat PUFA. Pure Thermo. Because what's going to happen is, and a bunch of people have said this a bunch of times already, your metabolic rate increases. So what you might consider to be a maintenance level at the moment quickly will become, you'll actually start losing weight, like because your metabolic rate is going to go up. So if you're in a really low metabolic state, like just an average sized person might have a maintenance level in the 2,000 calorie range or whatever. You can get that up really high if your dietary intake is very, just Thermo essentially. Like, well, there was some testimonial of a guy, was he like 150 something pounds, and he was consuming like 3,700 calories a day and still getting leaner every day.
Yeah. And Tomas Stilveski, like I was messaging back and forth with him. We were going over his macro ratios and calorie intake. He was up to like 3,500 calories a day at 165.
Wasn't he consuming something like 600 grams of carbs or something?
Yeah. I kept pushing him up. I was get it up there.
And for the people that are listening that don't know Tomas, I think is how you pronounce his name, right? He's in extremely good shape.
Yeah.
Very, very lean and jacked. So, again, the idea that carbs make you fat is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. Carbs are protein sparing, so they're going to spare muscle, especially whenever you're in a calorie surplus. So you're going to be able to utilize the amino acids from the protein that you're eating a lot more effectively. And then what's interesting is like they think that it leads to fat, but fat doesn't have to be transferred into a fat molecule to be stored. It can just be shuttled straight into the fat tissue because it's already in that form. Rather, carbs have to go through de novo lipogenesis to be so. If somebody is overweight and looking to lose weight, but they're in a low metabolic state, what would be the best strategy for them in that case?
First off, I would figure out what their actual caloric intake is on a daily basis.
Based on lean body mass or their current body weight?
No, their caloric intake. So, like, what are they eating now?
Oh, okay.
And this takes a level of honesty that most people aren't willing to even face themselves privately with.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I see people ignore are drinks. They don't take in, like, they're having sweet tea or like a coffee from Starbucks that's like 500 calories.
I think the biggest thing I've seen people ignore is just binge, like the binge, right? So a lot of times when you are heavier than you want to be, especially people that have like kind of a spiraling issue, they tend to have a binge purge pattern. And it's hard to admit because a lot of people are ashamed about it, but it's like a natural response to the compensation effect to want to do that. And then it becomes emotional. There's the shame and the guilt around it. And then the pattern becomes a habit. And then that's why a lot of people end up getting, pretty overweight. And I think and you can be extremely overweight, eating a lot of calories, but still be in a very low metabolic state, right? So it's almost always that way. So I think the first step is just for someone to like really be honest about what they're doing and find out like how much they're actually currently consuming, including the binges that everyone wants to forget, and pretend like they don't happen. You hear a lot of those stories like, oh, I'm all I do is eat salads and I'm still gaining weight. It's like, nope, that's not true. I know you're not just eating salads.
There is no way that's happening.
No. So just being honest with yourself, figuring out what are you consuming right now. Like maybe you're consuming 4,000 calories a day or something. I would just maybe even, because it is at that point really psychological, I would have them probably still consume like big meals, but just eat Thermo meals. Like you get really satisfied after a couple weeks too. It just becomes like easy. Cravings are gone.
Yeah. Getting rid of a lot of the crap in your system will go a long way.
Yeah. And so that's part of the issue is like when you're used to eating a lot of food, your appetite's going to be pretty big still for that, especially because there's the emotional component of the appetite there. So I would still recommend just like eating big foods, or big meals, like treat yourself still in that sense, but do it with high quality stuff. So have a bunch of grass-fed beef, potatoes, some rice, a smoothie, like maybe some Thermo ice cream or something, but just like start small, make a baby step, and just go toward like having really good, satisfying meals like this. You'll find that after even the first week potentially of doing it, that you do become satisfied at that intake level, and you'll find that it actually is really difficult to eat Thermo at 4,000 calories a day or even above 3,000 calories. It becomes, because your appetite just starts to go away.
Yeah.
The cravings are gone. You start to just feel good, and you're like, oh, well, I don't crave anything. I feel great. I'll just stick with what I'm doing here. And I would do that. That would be the first step.
Mm-hmm.
And then have them, once they reach that stage where the cravings have disappeared and they're starting to like build baby steps into better habits, then start to like, all right, we're measuring the temperature, look at like, can you lower if you feel confident in this type of habitual pattern that you're developing and you have momentum building, do you feel confident in like lowering that caloric intake a little bit at a time? It doesn't have to be huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll go with that until they find a real good balance where it's like the sweet spot, which the thermo effortless zone, which people can get to pretty quickly, you know?
Yeah. And I'd say one of the biggest tips is know that it's going to take time. Like it took you years to get to the point that you're at. So be prepared for it to take a while to get out of it.
Well, the lack of preparation for that or the acceptance of that is actually, I think, what causes the binge purge cycle in the first place, because you get into this, like deep into the situation that you want to get out of. And this could be true of any situation in your life. Like if you go deep into a bad habit, you want it to end now, like yesterday. Mm-hmm. But again, you have to accept that it took years potentially to get here. It might take years to truly get to the goal that you want. Like, do you want to look like Chris Hemsworth? Like if you're 100 pounds overweight, it might take a while. If you're 50 pounds overweight, it's probably going to take 2 years or 3 years of consistent effort. But again, it's a mindset thing. You have to accept that. Be like, all right, I'm just going to like build momentum. And once you, because a lot of people attach their happiness to that end goal, but once they don't do that and they start attaching the happiness to just making progress, I mean, it could, within the first week, you could just start to feel way better about everything. Like you're going to feel good physically. You're going to feel good mentally. Hey, I had a good week. I switched to Thermo foods this week. Or for 80% of my meals, I switched to Thermo foods. And I'm just eating like really satisfying big meals and I'm starting to feel good.
Yeah.
I might not have lost any weight, though you probably will. But I'm making some sort of progress in the right direction. Or every day I'm trying to find one blocker that I'm not going to do that anymore. Just one blocker. I'm going to get rid of it. Or add one activator. I'm going to go to sleep an hour earlier. Or I'm going to go on a walk today. Just do tiny things like that and build momentum. The momentum is massive. And then before you know it, you're going to be very satisfied with the fact that you're making progress. And then before you know it, you're going to be making like very noticeable progress physically. And then you have the momentum and it becomes just easy.
You don't even realize you're doing it at that point.
Just how you're acting. It's how you're living.
Yeah.
And that's when you know you're like, I just feel like I just do this forever. It's like what you said, like just eating Thermo forever. So that's how I feel about it. I'm like, why would I do anything else? It logically doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it so much. I don't feel like I'm deprived of anything.
Yeah. Sweet.
It's the opposite of feeling deprived. You actually feel like you have some sort of edge.
Yeah.
You're like, I feel like I have a secret here that no one else knows yet. So
yeah, I would say that's one thing that a lot of people probably one of the biggest struggles on Thermo is trying to gain weight. I see a lot of people, because we do have some like quote unquote hard gainers in the group that are trying to gain weight, and they're like, man, I just can't eat this much food on a daily basis. I mean, you can have strategies to gain the weight if you really need to, but yeah, I noticed that at 3,100 calories a day, I still have like 400 calories to go, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I can finish it out.
yeah, you get full.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What would you say would be for guys that are trying to gain weight? Guys, or sometimes women are trying to gain weight too.
So first of all, getting your protein intake in, just making sure that that's adequate, making sure that your macronutrients are in a good ratio. So the best one that I've seen is like a 25-25-50. So 25% protein, 25% fat, 50% carbs. And then after you get that, if you're trying to up your calorie intake, then utilizing liquid calories or dressings. So things like honey, maple syrup, sugar, adding milk to your coffee, like just all of these things that don't satiate you as much.
They're dense. Yeah.
And very dense in calories. Fats are going to be obviously 9 calories per gram of fat.
Yeah.
It's just
It's dense.
Yeah.
But it's harder to consume a lot of fats.
Yeah. You kind of feel like greasy.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even with like cooking. Say you cook stuff with butter or something. That's a really easy way to get extra calories.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still though. It's like there's a limit. You don't want to like put too much in there because then you just start to feel like, oh, there's just literally just too much fat in this thing. Like I don't. It's not appetizing anymore.
Yeah. You immediately feel like your arteries are all clogged up.
Yeah, even though they're not, it's not really like the butter's not going to do that.
Yeah,
but
no, saturated fat doesn't do that. It's the PUFAs.
Yeah, it's more like the ratio, the balance of like actual deliciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there's the right place to strike that one.
Definitely.
You know, cooking some grass-fed beef in butter tastes freaking great, especially with salt.
Yeah.
But you don't want to put too much butter in there, else all you're going to taste is butter. So.
Yeah. And then finding the foods that you enjoy the most and sticking to those. I think that's what a lot of people struggle with. They
Simplicity.
think Yeah. They think they need to go way out of the box to try and do all these things. And it's like, just keep it simple and enjoy it, you know?
Yeah. Well, organic white rice is a very good thing in that scenario too. Because it's pretty much just a pure starch that most people can eat a lot of rice compared to potatoes, like volume wise. If you were to eat the same just physical bowl volume worth of potatoes versus white rice, you can get way more calories in the white rice.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I'd say those are my biggest tips. Whole milk, you know, just getting like straight from the teat if you can.
Have you ever done that?
Huh?
Have you done that?
So I raised pigs growing up, and
pigs make milk.
Well, we would have, you know, we'd be waiting for this pig to have her babies, and she'd just be sitting there. We'd be out there for, 8-10 hours at a time, and I'm 12 years old at this point, and we get pretty bored, just sitting there. So they were like, Jayton, bet you won't get some milk. And I was like, bet I will.
Oh,
and
shit.
So next thing I know, I'm just latching onto the teat of an old sow. So
nice.
Yeah.
So you have done it, yes.
I have done it, yes.
I can't claim a similar story, but that's pretty cool.
It was interesting, to say the least. It didn't taste bad.
What did the pig do?
Just kind of, I don't know if she enjoyed it, but she took it. So
She was occupied with other thoughts.
Yeah, she was probably busy trying to push those babies out.
Yeah.
So
nice. Well,
but yeah. So that's why they call me the research cowboy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jayton is a true cowboy from Texas.
Yeah, but yeah, I probably won't ever tell that story to anybody else again. So.
Well, it's on the internet now. So.
But.
All right. That is a good way to end this podcast.
Yeah.
Little Jayton trivia. So now we're gonna just do a quick little product nudge. We have we like to do these at the end of the episodes now. Helps keep the lights on, and also helps to inform our listeners about some of the cool supplements that we have at Umzu. Right here, what we're going to talk about right now is something that's called Mucuna Purians, which, if you haven't heard about it, it's a really, really cool supplement. It's an extract that contains 15% L-Dopa, which is a precursor to dopamine, which is now apparently, according to Amazon, considered a pharmaceutical, which that's a whole nother. I could go on a diatribe about all the ridiculous things the pharmaceutical industry is trying to do.
Which is really interesting. Like a natural herb is being used like that powerfully.
Yeah. They're doing the same thing with cannabis right now. They're trying to classify all these cannabis extracts as drugs, like pharmaceutical drugs, when it's a freaking extract from a plant. And it's just getting annoying. I mean, they're using it just for profit reasons. Because when they can control it and they patent it like that, then they can jack the price up. So currently, though, we're selling Mucuna Purians now. Who knows how long that'll last?
Yeah.
But it's a really, really cool extract, and it's extremely useful at increasing dopamine levels in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So people, and we've had success stories from like a guy you found that one the other day about he got off opioids, and it helped him really restore himself in his system back to normal.
Yeah,
way more quickly than he thought.
He actually said that for the first time in 11 years, he felt like himself, which is really interesting because he was an opioid addict for quite a long time. And then he got off of them, and I guess he's been struggling for a while, and then he started taking the dopamine daily, and he said for the first time in 11 years, he started feeling like himself, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And so dopamine is very dense in levodopa, and so a lot of people, whenever they have a dopamine deficiency, they can't convert the amino acids into L-dopa that can then be converted into dopamine. So this is basically eliminating that step, supplying the levodopa that is necessary to be converted into dopamine.
And it's reliably useful. I mean, a lot of people are talking about with Umzu mucuna, essentially like increasing their well-being levels very noticeably. Their mood obviously goes up because of that. The level of focus increases in the brain. So just in terms of like what sort of effects that you could expect from this sort of thing, those are pretty much the big ones. And increase in energy, you start to feel good. I mean, if you have higher dopamine levels, you're going to feel good.
Definitely.
But it's being naturally produced by your body. So that's a very good thing.
Yeah. And like the pharmaceutical industry right now, the studies that they're doing on it is all for like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and age-related cognitive decline. So, I mean, if they're interested in it, then it has some kind of use for that.
It's useful.
Yeah.
It's very useful.
Yeah.
Most pharmaceuticals are actually they find like natural extracts, and then they just try to replicate them synthetically, change one little thing about it, patent it as a drug, and then try to control the whole supply chain with that. And then they try to outlaw the natural version that they used originally.
Yeah.
It's fucked.
It's interesting.
There are ways around it.
Yeah.
You know.
But this is an old label, so it actually says mucuna pruriens on there now, and it has the updated stuff. So look out for that in the Umzu store.
Yep.
If you're going to buy it.
Yeah, if you're interested in mucuna, you can go find it over on umzu.com. It's also a very affordable supplement.
Yeah. Be prepared. If you take it before bed, you will have crazy dreams, just as a precursor. So be prepared for that.
Dreams.
Yeah. Interesting, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening to this episode of the Thermo Diet Podcast. We're glad that you joined us, whether it was on your commute, maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're going on a walk, wherever you're listening to us. We're glad you're here. If you want to leave a review, if you like the podcast, you can go wherever you're listening, whether it's Apple or Google, Spotify, wherever. Just give us a review. We'd love all the support there. And then if you're not in the Thermo Diet Facebook group, you should just go find it. I mean, join it. You'll love it. It's a really cool group.
Yeah. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to toss them up in there. I guarantee you'll have at least 5 people answering them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And any topics for future podcasts you want us to talk about, throw it in the Facebook group and we'll read it.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next show.
Have a good one.